Hey guys, today I want to talk about my new upgrades to my home stereo system. So I decided to upgrade my home desktop system. So I'm going to do a brief review, demonstration, just talk about the components that I got. So I got a new stereo integrated amp and a new subwoofer. So this is for my home desktop system, and the reason I'm upgrading is because I mostly spend my time at home listening to music, and mostly at my desk actually. So last year I did a video review on the new receiver that I got, which is the Marantz NR 15110, which is a pretty nice surround receiver for the price, right? It's not the most expensive receiver. It's probably, I would say maybe a little bit higher than low budget. It's like 600 bucks, so it's not the cheapest one, but it's definitely not anywhere, near like what someone would call audiophile level, right? So it's not like $1,000, $2,000, definitely not really expensive. So it's fine for what it is. It's a little bit underpowered. It gives 50 watts into 5 channels. I mean, it's fine for my home theater system because I don't really listen to that much music on my home theater system, right? I'm using a Martin Logan Motion 5.1 system right now, which I also had in the same video. So you guys, if you want to hear the Martin Logan Motion speakers, you can hear in that video. There's 2 eyes for the bookshelves, 2 eyes for the surrounds, and a Dynamo 400 for the subwoofer, and a 6-eye for the center channel. So if you guys want to hear those, it's in that video. And it's pretty nice. It's definitely an upgrade over my old LG soundbar. Since I've listened to soundbars pretty much my entire life, I wanted to upgrade to a discrete setup. So yeah, this receiver, the Marantz receiver, and the Martin Logan 5.1 setup is pretty good for what it is. Not that expensive, and gives me some pretty good sound just for gaming and watching movies and stuff. But for listening to music, I needed a better system, right? Because right now, my home stereo system, right now my speakers are, well actually they were the Creative Sound Blaster Katana X for a long time. Those were sound bars that were meant for a computer, for a desktop system. And I got those back in 2017, and I've been using them for like 3 years, honestly. 4 years actually, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, yeah, 4 years. So I used that sound bar for 4 years, and that was all I used, that's all I knew, right? And after I upgraded my home theater system from a sound bar to a 5.1 setup, a discrete 5.1 setup, I thought maybe I should upgrade my desktop system as well, right? So I decided to change out my Creative Sound Blaster Katana X soundbar and upgrade that to a pair of Klipsch R41 PMs, which are powered bookshelves. And those were fine as well, and I will actually use them in this video as a benchmark comparison because that's what I'm using right now. So I'm using a pair of Klipsch R41 PMs right now. Those are my bookshelf speakers that I'm using for my desktop, and those are going to be the benchmark comparison. But I wanted something a little bit better because those are still kind of budget bookshelf speakers. They're about 300 bucks US, so still kind of budget, and they didn't have a dedicated, well, they didn't have a separate amplifier, right? So because they're powered bookshelves, so the amp is built into the bookshelf, so obviously it's not going to be as powerful as getting a dedicated amplifier, right? So those audiophiles out there will say, hey, just get separates, right? Get a preamp slash DAC, and then, or a DAC on top of that, and then get a power amp, right? But that's also pretty expensive, right? Separates are expensive and also take up a lot of space. So my desk has a limited amount of space, and I didn't want to take up too much space, and also I had a budget. So my budget was, I would say, roughly around $4,000, right? 4,000, maybe a little bit higher than that, but that was it. About 4,000 bucks. And I was thinking, what could I do with 4,000 bucks? Now, if I got separates, if I got a preamp or a DAC, and then a power amp, that's going to take up like 3,000 bucks already, right? And I wouldn't have enough money for separate speakers on top of that. And the speakers are really the most important thing. So I really want to upgrade my speakers too, and then test them out against the Klipsch that I have and see what kind of difference it would make. So this is the choices I made, okay? So first of all, I had to get a subwoofer too. Right now, my Klipsch bookshelf speakers, they don't really go very low, and even with bookshelves, you often need to have a subwoofer just to add on to the bass frequencies, because most bookshelves, even the really high-end ones, you're still going to want a subwoofer to add those low range frequencies, because a lot of them, well, they're just not going to give you that much in low range, right? They're going to go down to, well, my clips right now actually only goes down to like 75 hertz, which is definitely not good enough. But even high-end speakers will go down to like 50 hertz or 45 or 40 hertz, right? So you're going to need a subwoofer if you want to go down to something as low as, say, like 30 hertz or 25 hertz. You're definitely going to need a subwoofer for that. So I got a compact subwoofer. The reason it's compact is because I live in an apartment, and this is for a desktop system, which means it's a near-field listening experience, right? Near-field listening experience, so I'm not looking for big bookshelves. I'm looking for reasonably compact bookshelf speakers that produce good sound for the size, and I'm looking for a compact subwoofer. So this is what I start out with, is I got these two. So I got the Rotel RA-1572 integrated amplifier. So I went for an integrated amplifier because they're generally cheaper, better value, and take up less space than a separate setup, right? So the power amp and the preamp is built into the same chassis. So it takes up, less space, and it's actually cheaper most of the time as well, because you don't have to. Actually, power amps cost the same amount of money as an integrated amp. So yeah, integrated amp adds the preamp onto it and the DAC as well. So yeah, I saved myself some money there. So this is the Rotel RA-1572. So talk about this first. Why I got the Rotel. So I was looking at a bunch of different companies for amps. So there are 4 other companies I looked at. One was, well, I should say 4 other models I looked at from different companies. So one is the Marantz PM8006, which is actually cheaper than these Rotels. The reason I didn't go for them is I kind of wanted to have an amplifier with a dedicated sub out. So the reason is because I wanted to attach a subwoofer, right? And I didn't want to play around with the preamp outs. So yeah, I just wanted to have, one of my requirements for my integrated amp was to have a dedicated subwoofer out. The Marantz didn't have that, so yeah, that was off the list. And then I looked at the NAD C388. So the NAD was pretty nice too. It was just more expensive, and I got a deal on this Rotel, right? There was a few other amps I was looking at that was pretty much around the same range and same specs. The Cambridge Audio CXA81s are another pair I was looking at. So the CXA81s were pretty nice too, had a nice DAC, had a dedicated sub out, but the power wasn't as much. I think it was like 80 watts, right? 80 watts continuous. The Rotels are 120 watts continuous. These are more powerful. And the NADs, almost as much, but I think there's only like, I think it was like 100 watts or something like that. So still not as powerful as the Rotels and more expensive. So yeah, that's why the Rotels I think were better value than those. And I also looked at the Peachtree Audio Nova 150s. Now the Nova 150s actually give more power than these. They're 150 watts. The reason I didn't go for them is actually they didn't have a dedicated subwoofer out. And also, Class D power, I mean, I can't say whether or not, I'm not like a real audiophile or anything, I can't say whether or not Class D power is better or worse than Class AB power, but I think in general, people would say Class AB power is a bit cleaner. So, take that as you will. I know that Peachtree Audio has pretty good reputation. I'm sure their Class D amps are they sound really nice and probably very clean, but if they're the same price, I'd rather go for just Class AB power, right? So yeah, Peachtree Audio Nova 150s, very nice power output, but didn't have the subwoofer out, and I preferred Class AB power for the same price. And then the Cambridge Audio CX81s and the NAD C388s, these ones are better value. The Rotel's a little bit cheaper because I got it on a deal. Now the MSRPs are probably around the same as the NAD and the Cambridge Audios, but it just gave me a lot. I mean, this thing has basically everything, all the inputs and stuff. And the Marantz, of course, as I said, didn't have a subwoofer out. And plus, I believe these are a little bit better quality anyways than the Marantz. So, what did I get with this? I got, obviously, the power cable, right, necessary. And I also got the Ethernet cord. You can connect this to the network. I'm not going to do that, but it's an option to upgrade the firmware and stuff, which is nice. Then these cables are just, I believe they're just for the connecting, 3.5 millimeter, seems like. But there's a lot of 3.5 millimeter jacks here, so it could be for some link cable or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure. It looks like it could be for some link cable. It looks like some Rotel link things in here. And then there's the instruction manual. So this is, you get a CD-ROM, which I don't use CD-ROMs, haven't used CDs for a very long time to install things, but you get it here for you old school guys, and instruction manual and the warranty card. That's all in here. So that's it in the Rotels. So yeah, these are the Rotel RA-1572s. It is a very hefty integrated amplifier. Yep, weighs about 30 pounds, but it's really nicely built. So this is my first time with a stereo integrated amplifier. I never had one before, but it just looks really solid, really high tech. I mean, when people see this stuff at my house, I'm sure they're gonna think, well, this guy, he must be an audiophile. Anyways, look at the inputs here. There's a USB charging input, I believe. You can charge your phone with it here. Headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter. It's not 1/4 inch. You got a power button right here to enable the device. Speakers, there's 2 speaker inputs here. So this is interesting. You can actually use this amp to bi-wire a speaker, or you can use it to drive 2 different sets of speakers. This is very cool. So you can just A or B right there. This is infrared for the remote. So yeah, I mean, you definitely get a remote with this thing. So this is what the remote looks like. It's a very, very needlessly complicated remote, but that's maybe fine because Rotel is not known to be like a typical consumer company that everyone has. I mean, if this was a Sony or a Samsung, then I would dock them more for this, but I mean, Rotel is reasonably well known in audiophile circles, and people who are look into upgrading their stereo systems and using stereo systems with different amps and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say that they're as well known as, say, a Sony or a Samsung or even Marantz or Denon, right? They're not as well known as an Onkyo or Integra, Yamaha, Pioneer. They're not as well known as those kind of brands. Those are like really mainstream brands. Rotel is a little bit more niche among the hi-fi stereo crowd, I would say. But they're still reasonably well known. Like, they're not super audiophile brands would be like Class A, right? Or IR Acoustics. Those would be like super like audiophile brands. But that's that's talking about tens of thousands of dollars at that point. But yeah, I'd say Rotel's reasonably well known, but they're not super mainstream. So I'm not going to dock them too much for this remote. As you can see, it's needlessly complicated. It has different buttons for every input, right? Like my Marantz at least has like an input selector knob for all these different inputs, but the Rotels have a dedicated button for each input, which is nice to have. It's convenient, but you're polluting the remote with a lot of stuff, right? And then, I mean, the other one's pretty typical. I actually don't know why they have this. I guess this is for CD tracks or something like that, but yeah, I mean, it looks like a TV remote, which is weird because you would never. It's not for operating a TV, so that's why I got kind of confused. That it's like they have numbers on here, like you're pressing a channel or something like that. But I'm like, it's not for a TV. So, anyways, a lot of buttons on this remote. It's fine. It's just a little bit bigger than it need to be. All right. And then you have a typical LED display here. I'm not sure if it's OLED. I don't think it is. Then you got different inputs. Like I said, just like with the remote, you got a separate button for each input instead of a rotator knob, which I guess is fine if you're if you don't power this on and you just see these different buttons. It might be easier to find what input you're looking for. With my Marantz, I always gotta like switch the knob and then until I find the right input. With this one, it's all there, so it could be more convenient, but also kind of pollutes the front here. Yeah, so you got 2 coaxials, 2 opticals, PC USB. I'm going to use this with my computer because I have a desktop setup, so I'm using this DAC with my computer. USB input, and then you got Bluetooth. I believe it is aptX as well, but not aptX HD. Then you got a phono input. I'm going to connect this to my turntable as well. Right now my turntable is also connected to my Klipsch, and my Klipsch is connected to my PC via my Creative Sound Blaster X3 external sound card, but they're both going to connect to my Rotels now. So yeah, phono input now for my vinyl player, CD, and this is XLR, which has a balanced input. So it's a balanced input, tuner, aux, and USB, and I believe this is another USB. The PC USB is a different one. Then you got menu, plus and minus. I guess this is increase or decrease settings, and then enter on the menu. This is the volume knob, right? So yeah, this is the main knob you'll need on a stereo amp. It's this volume. That's it for the front. Now let's look at the back. Let's look at what we got on the back. So since this is an integrated amp, we have all the connections on the back like you would on a preamp, and you can actually use this as a preamp as you can with a lot of high-end integrated amps. You have a preamp out, so you can use this as a preamp as well. But at that point, you know, why not just get a preamp? Okay, so you got a ground here for the phono connection for the vinyl. Phono inputs, which comes with a moving magnet cartridges only, okay? If you have a moving coil connection, it's probably not going to work unless it's unless it's a very high output, unless it's a very high output moving coil, then it'll be fine. But if a low output moving coil, then it's probably not going to work. CD, tuner, aux. This is a sub out I was looking for, right? So like I said, I want to have an amplifier with a dedicated sub out. Here it is. You can also have two outs actually out here as well if your sub takes in two, which mine doesn't. Pre-out right here, you can use this as a preamp. And then you have balanced inputs right here in case you have a DAC. Say I use a shit Bifrost 2 and it has balanced outs, then you can put balanced ins here. It might improve the signal quality because, you know, balanced has less noise, so that might be useful. And then you got the speaker terminals here. Like I said, there's two sets of speakers that this can connect to, so this can actually be bi-wiring a set of speakers, or you can connect it to two speakers, and I guess it'll split the outage. So I don't know. Digital in, so you got digital coaxial ×2 and digital optical ×2. So you got your SPDIF and your TwoSlink. And then you got USB connection to your computer right here. I believe it is using an AKM DAC. It doesn't say which one. AKM DACs are generally pretty good. I think AKMs, ESS Sabers, I mean, they're both fine. I mean, I'm okay with whichever one. I mean, I don't have a preference. It really depends. I would say for ESS Saber, it depends on the implementation more. AKM DACs in general are pretty good as well. But yeah, it's apparently 32-bit, 384 kilohertz. So you're looking at pretty high-res files, DSDs and stuff like that. If you want to use those, play those, I'm just going to be playing FLACs. So network. This is your connecting to the Ethernet. You can upgrade the firmware as a Bluetooth antenna or receiver right here. Then you get a RS-232. You got a serial port. I wonder what this is connected for. I actually don't know. But yeah, I guess you can operate some kind of system with this using the serial port. And the power right here, AC, and then you got another port here for charging your phone. It looks like interesting. Or you can connect a device to it. I think that's what the USB input might be for. Maybe if you connect a USB key on there, it might be reading some files off of there, and then you can do that. That's cool. And then you got 12-volt trig out, and this is EXT REM. Not sure. I'm not sure what these are. I don't think I'll use them, but I don't know. I'm not sure what that. And the Rotel link as well. Just connect to other Rotel products, I guess, but probably not going to be using any of these. But they do give you a cable for connecting to these. So yeah, that's about it. That is the Rotel RA-1572 integrated amp. And my subwoofer. So I was looking for a very compact subwoofer for my desktop stereo system, like I said, because I'm going to be listening to it near field, so I don't need a subwoofer that's too big or too expensive. So I'm just looking for a basic subwoofer that looks good and reasonably compact. And this is the REL Acoustics Tzero MKIII. Now, I actually did a ranking of all these different audio brands in a vlog before, and I put REL Acoustics kind of in the A tier, but actually after reading some more reviews and stuff online, I think it might be better if I just put this REL Acoustics more in the C tier, because they're actually not that great value for what you get. I think people, if you want a good subwoofer, go for the SVS. SVS just makes amazing subwoofers for the price. Just go for those. But the RELs, I got these because, yeah, I mean, they look pretty good. And I mean, it's just a cube shape, right? It looks pretty good, reasonably performant. I know it's probably a little bit overpriced for what it is, but yeah, it's fine. I'm just looking for like a nice, cute-looking subwoofer, I guess, and this fits the bill. Yeah, and I mean, just looking for something pretty simple. So this pretty much satisfied all the criteria. Plus I got a deal, right? I got a deal on both of these. So I thought, why not just go for the REL? So this is pretty much exactly what I'm looking for. So this is a T0 Mark III. Yep, so REL Acoustics is a British audio company that only makes subwoofers. They don't make any other kind of speakers. So that's another thing I liked about them is, well, they only make one kind of speaker, so I assume they must be pretty good at it. Right, and they've been in business for a while, so that's another reason that I went for them. So pretty much it, black box. So if you want to know where the driver is, it is a 6.5-inch aluminum cone driver right here at the bottom, and that's pretty much it. It's a nice 6.5-inch aluminum cone. In the back, here are all the different connections. So you can see REL Acoustics, based in the UK, like a lot of speaker companies are actually. It's pretty impressive how many speaker companies the UK has, and made in China obviously for this price. Yeah, and then you get high level input right here. This is something that REL Acoustics is actually known for, I believe, but I'm not really going to use it. You got power button right here, and you got AC connection right here. You got two inputs right here. You have the low level input, and then you have the LFE input. I'm not really sure what's the difference between these two. I tried them both out. It seems like for my Rotels, it works better with the LFE input. But for my Klipsch, when I try to connect it to my Klipsch, it actually works better with the low level input. So I guess it depends on the amp you're using. Depending on the subwoofer out of your amp, you might be using one of these. So I tried it with both. So with my Rotels, it works better with the LFE, and then with my Klipsch built-in amp, because it's powered, and my Klipsch has a subwoofer out as well, it works better with the with the low level input here. So yeah, you can adjust the levels of both, a low level and LFE level, and then you can adjust the crossover level of both. And yeah, and it really depends on your speakers, right? You gotta know what is the operating frequencies of your speakers. Say if your speakers go down to 75 Hertz, like my Klipsch do, then you would set this at 75 Hertz. And everything below that would go to this subwoofer, right? Now if I get a better pair of speakers, and say it goes down to 50 Hertz, then I would adjust this to 50 Hertz, right? Or if I go for my Martin Logan, if I use my Martin Logan 2Is, which really don't have any low end at all, I think it goes down to 110 Hertz. So I might have to set this all the way up to 110 Hertz. So it really depends on your speaker's operating frequencies. This is phase. I'm not really sure. I don't really use this too much. 180 or not. I keep it at 0 usually, unless there's something that sounds really off, and then I'll probably look online and see what I need to do there to adjust the phase. Standby and no standby, always on. Okay, well, standby, I believe it will be powering off if you're not using it. Always on is just always on. I would put it in standby since I don't always use my speaker system. But if you're constantly using it, then yeah, maybe you want it always on. So it's pretty simple, and this is what it came with. It's REL Acoustics. Kind of manual right here. Obviously comes with the power cord, right? So that's it right there, and then it comes with these. This is I believe this is the high level input, so this would actually go in here, this high level input. Now, these ones, the other end of the connection would go, I guess, to your power amp, right? So this would go to your power amp or your powered amplifier speakers. Yeah, so these would go to your power amp or your powered speakers, but I'm not really sure which. I'm not really sure which type of connection it would go to. Like what output does it go to? I'm not sure too much. I'll have to do some research on that. But for right now, I'm just using, for my Rotels, I'm using the LFE input of this with the subwoofer out of this. So that's how I'm using it. It seems to be working fine. If there is a benefit to using this high level input in their cables and stuff, then I'll use it, but I have to do some research on which inputs or outputs I would use for the Rotel and how to connect it. But yeah, for now it seems that the LFE works fine, so I'm just using that. Alright, That's pretty much it. It's a nice looking subwoofer, very compact, and it only has one driver, but anyways, it gives me all the bass that I need. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. So that's it. Then I got deals on both of these, so pretty happy about the price I paid. Actually, like saved around 25% on both of these, so I'm happy with that. Oh yeah, so the price I paid for these guys, the REL was about 500 bucks US, and I paid about 400 bucks after I got the discount. And the Rotels, these are originally like 2,000 bucks US if you get them on Crutchfield. I actually got these for about $1,500. So yeah, I think I saved a good amount on both. So yeah, I think that is basically half of my budget, and the other half I allocated to the speakers.